Hey race fans, welcome to another edition of KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. And Bob Baker back with us. He did a Try Knoxville show with us here a few weeks ago, but we didn't really talk a lot about racing. We talked about you growing up into racing and how you became part of the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum. But since then, we've had some more modifications to the season, some more schedule changes. Literally, you've had to push back the induction weekend 2 months.
Yes, we pushed back our National Sprint Car Hall of Fame induction banquet to August the 1st, Saturday, August 1st. Originally, we were scheduled for just a few weeks on May 30th, which is our traditional Saturday after the Indianapolis 500. But with everything that's going on right now, we thought it'd be a lot better for us to get everybody together by August 1st on Saturday, and that's the same night the All-Stars are racing at Knoxville. So we're pretty excited about that.
Knoxville's going to be busy that weekend, we hope anyway. It all depends on what the COVID thing turns around and does for the rest of the year. But, you know, the induction weekend is I don't want to say one of the biggest weekends you have, because obviously Nationals week is huge as far as the fans coming in and touring, but it's definitely one of the most, what I consider, historic weekends. And we talked about this a little bit on Try Knoxville, but I want to touch on this a little bit more. On Friday night especially, are you still doing the Friday night deal?
Yep, we're still doing our roundtable discussion with all of our Hall of Fame inductees who have already been inducted, who travel back to Knoxville every year to be a part of that Friday night show. It's like a bench racing event. It's free on our second floor and open to the public, so everybody can come. It's at 7 o'clock. And we usually get about 15 to 20 of our past inductees to sit at a large table with microphones where they can all talk with each other and share some of their stories of the past and some racing history that many of us have never heard before. You know, the people like Lynn Paxton and the guys that come from Pennsylvania. You get a few guys from the West Coast and people from all across the country that share their experience in open wheel and sprint car racing with us. And we just have a great time. Hear a lot of really good stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else except for at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum on that Friday night before the induction banquet. So that will be on Friday, July 30th at 7 o'clock. And again, it is free and open to the public. It's one of the highlights of our induction banquet weekend.
I really enjoy sitting on those because, and here's why, bench racing or liars bench racing as the case may be, because some of the stories, they change once in a while. And what's really funny is when two guys are battling back and forth and they're talking about their stories that when they used to compete against each other, and one will tell a story and they, no, that's not the way it happened, and then they go into a different version of the same story. It's just so, again, just like in every other sport, but in racing in general, you can have a race here last Friday night with the World of Outlaws and everybody saw something different than what the other guy did, and that's what's neat about these stories.
Yes, I think the drivers and our inductees embellish the stories a little bit, and then once in a while there'll be one of their fellow competitors who will reel them back in just a little bit and say, now wait a minute, this is how I saw it from where I was sitting.
Yeah.
And so then you'll get somebody, you know, that's an official and say, well, from where I was sitting, you guys are both wrong.
Exactly,
you know,
right.
And so you really get the end of the story, you know, before the whole evening is up.
One of my favorite Shane Carson stories, and Shane tunes into this show every week, and I got to tell this story. He always talks about driving for Bob Trostle and the fact that he won him a championship and got fired. You know, he brings that up every time because of Wolfgang, of course. You know, so it just was one of those stories that he talks about the winning season they had and the championship they did, and then I got fired. You know, so Bob Trostle, who's been gone for several years now, one of the icons of the sports, and I had an opportunity to interview him several times. But some of the stories that Bob has told through his lifetime are still at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum as well.
Yes, we were very fortunate before Bob passed away to have a Sprint Car 101 on a Thursday evening many years ago with Bob, and his memory was so sharp. We had randomly picked about 200 pictures out of our archives, and we didn't tell Bob about any of the pictures specifically, just that we were going to show the pictures and for him to describe, you know, what was in the picture. So we put a picture up behind us, and he goes, oh yeah, that was back at the fairgrounds in Oklahoma City back in 1974, and I'm trying to think who was driving for me, but I remember we used a hard diamond that day, and we ended up winning the feature, and everybody was just really surprised that we came down from Knoxville, you know, and won that race. And he was like that on every picture. You know, he would know who the driver was, the tires on the car, the race setup on the car. Sometimes he'd even remember where they stopped for dinner on the way home and who was with them on the trip and some of the stories. And it was just really cool to hear somebody that was that mentally sharp and remember all those things. I can't remember sometimes, you know, where I went to dinner last week, but Bob remembered all these details from so many years ago. It was so interesting. And I think that everybody there when it was over was just like, I can't believe he never looked at any of those pictures before you guys got up and start talking about them. And he had never really seen them, before that night.
Sprint Car 101 is one of the things you guys do and are still doing, again, with everything being modified right now. But are there intentions to continue that later on?
We did those for about 2 or 3 years, and really our attendance really waned on that. So
Right.
what we try to do now is if we know we've got somebody special coming to town, a Hall of Fame inductee from out of town, or somebody that hasn't been to Knoxville in a long time that we think there would be an interest for the public to attend the event, we do a Sprint Car 101 and interview them and talk with them and let them tell their story.
Sure.
And then let the people in attendance ask questions about specific races or things they always wanted to ask a driver or one of our inductees. So we don't do them every week like we used to
Right.
several years ago, but we do them periodically throughout the season, and we promote them, with social media and also on our webpage at sprintcarhof.com.
Sprint Car 101 also travels. You guys have done shows not just at the Hall of Fame.
Yes, we do one. We've done one the last 3 or 4 years in Indianapolis, right around the time of the PRI show, the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show, and we've done them at Steve Stapp shop back there at Hoosier Tire Midwest. And we usually get a very good turnout. Pat Sullivan is one of our MCs, and we just have a great time. Usually we have about 3 or 4 inductees that we, kind of focus on and get up to the front and talk and ask questions. And they tell some great stories. We have a good time. It's usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I think we do it on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. Thursday night, I think, is usually the night we do those.
Do you guys record all those too?
We do record some of them, but not all of them. Chris Crone has recorded many of them that we've had here in Knoxville, and we'd like to congratulate, Chris Crone for being inducted into the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame here on the 4th of July. So that'll be a big night for Chris, and everybody else is being inducted along with him. I know Dave Hill is going to be inducted, and Dave does a lot of work for our museum to help us with photos for our calendars and other events that we have. So having both those guys right around Knoxville and being inducted into the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame is pretty special for everybody around our museum.
Other people are going to be inducted, and I was going to talk about this with you anyway. And again, Knoxville Hall of Fame is totally different than the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. We need to clarify that. But in the Knoxville Hall of Fame, Ruth Grace, who's a long time on the safety crew, and also Randy Martin. And I don't know if it's cool that I actually know and knew Ruth, but know all the rest of them as well, or the fact that I'm just getting that much damn older, because I literally know each one of them have worked elbow to elbow with these folks. Actually worked on a car with Randy for a couple weeks too when he was driving for Roebuck's car way back when. And it's kind of neat to see familiar faces that you grew up with, but also it's a kind of a sign of, wow, I've been around this game for a long time now.
I kind of feel that way with Randy Martin. I was promoting the races back in Sedalia in the early 1990s, and
Yeah.
Randy was just really kind of getting started in sprint car racing with the 360 racing and racing he was doing at the time. And now Randy's getting inducted into the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame, and I'm sitting looking going, well, I have known Randy Martin for 30-some years,
Yeah.
and I'm going, holy smokes, I could tell a few good Randy Martin stories too.
You talk about August 1st, let's go back to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum. Your inductees for this year?
Our inductees, we're very happy to induct Don Lamberti. Don from Casey's General Stores, the founder of Casey's, and one of our founding fathers and original board members from the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum will be inducted. Of course, Jeff Swindell is going to be inducted. Greg Hodnett, who we're doing our Salute to Champion Greg Hodnett at our museum as soon as we open up through October 1st. We just got the final race cars in for Greg. We've got 8 of Greg's race cars on display, and more memorabilia than we've had for any driver in the 10 Salute to Champions that we've had in the past. So we've got a really, really good group of cars and an exhibit planned for when we do get the museum open. We were just over this morning with a forklift lifting some of the cars up in the air to put them on stands to bring them up to eye level for people to enjoy a little bit better. But we have 8 inductees this year. Also being inducted is Spencer Riggs, who a lot of people from our area don't know Spencer Riggs. But if you've been around sprint car racing and Open Wheel magazine, you probably remember a lot of the stories that Spencer Riggs wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he was a author for the Indianapolis newspaper, the Indianapolis Star. A lot of people don't know this about Spencer, but if you're the rest of the story, the guy that wrote those all the time,
Mm-hmm.
he was the one that did the homework on those for all those stories that you heard the background of the story that everybody knew the real story, but the background is what Spencer worked on.
You're talking about the Indianapolis area, and it's funny growing up as a kid and Open Wheel magazine and Speed Sport. That's about all we knew about Indianapolis was through those publications. So to see some of those writers, reporters start to become a focus of the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, not that it's just now happening, it's happened throughout the whole time, but it's just really neat to see some of those names pop in there now.
It is one of our pre 1945 inductee is Bill Cummings, and we had to do quite a bit of research to find one of his great nieces to come and accept for him. And lo and behold, she had a lot of history on her great uncle Bill Cummings, who raced big cars back in the day. And she's got photos she's sending to us, and she's got some stories and different things, and she just remembers so much about what her family had told her about her great uncle. And she was just thrilled to be coming back to Knoxville to accept his induction for him. So we're going to get to hear some good stories from her and her family when they come back. It's just a great wealth of knowledge that we have when the inductees are inducted, and then also when they come back to tell their stories. So it's a great way for younger people to learn the stories that happened before they were born. I think a good example is I was at a Chiefs game back in the fall, and Nick and Kirsty Peterson from Checker Flag Concessions.
Yep.
We were talking, a bunch of us were talking about the 1980 Knoxville Nationals. Now the race was fogged out, and Mike Brooks had a perfect score, and that was the first year Steve Kinzer, won his first Knoxville Nationals. And Nick and Kirsty were there, and they looked at me kind of funny, and they go, "Bob, we weren't born in 1980." And I'm like, oh my gosh, talk about making somebody feel old real fast.
Yeah.
But there's so much history that can live on through the stories that are told, and the people that hear them can pass them on to their relatives and racing friends. And so it's a great event to be able to come to the induction banquet and hear straight from the inductees, and then also that Friday night bench racing event we have.
You talk about bench racing, and over on Ralph Street, they got benches there and all the bench racing going on there. If turns 3 and 4 could talk, man, the stories that were outside that during the Nationals, even on regular Saturday nights at one time. But once things get opened up again, which we hope the governor's going to announce this week eventually that will happen for the museum, because for the life of me, I still haven't figured out the whole thing around why museums and certain other businesses were closed, but it is what it is. We have to play the cards we're dealt. What are some of the plans as far as coming to visit the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum? Because, you guys are sitting there. You've had a couple months now to clean things up and reorganize and get ready. What can you see when you walk in? You talked about the Greg Hodnett display. What else?
Well, the main thing you're going to see is Greg Hodnett's 8 race cars when you first walk through the door. 8 of his cars. We've got the first sprint car, the first race car that Greg owned and raced and won his first feature in down in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And so it was called a B car. They were known as B cars back then. And we've got a picture of Greg in front of the car, and we've also got Greg's driving uniform that he won that race in. So we've got a picture of Greg in his driving uniform. Right next to it, we've got the driving uniform that Greg Hodnett wore, the helmet that Greg Hodnett wore when he won his first feature race. Then right next to that is the race car. And so you can see everything. You can see the history in the picture, but you can also see the race car, the driver's uniform, the helmet, and then the story that goes along with it that you learn. And each of these cars has a history, like the car that Greg drove to his last feature win when he won that preliminary race here in Knoxville during the Nationals in 2018. And there's a story that goes along with the race car and the races and many races that Greg won in that car. So it's nice to be able to have the cars on display, but even better, I think, to be able to tell the story of which races that Greg did well in the race car and how he came to acquire that ride, how he got into the race car. So you can see all the different drivers' uniforms he wore. These are the real race cars. These are not replicas or cars that are made to look like Greg's cars. These are the authentic race cars that Greg sat in and raced and won all the features in, and his uniforms and his helmets that his wife Sherry's been nice enough to loan to us to put on display. And just a lot of memorabilia. We've got the Bob Weichert Mr. Beef trophy, the great, it weighs 60 pounds. And so we wanted to get it where we could display it, but we think we're going to end up putting it underneath one of the race cars that's lifted up, because we have a glass case that it will fit perfectly. And so we're excited about the trophies, the belts, Greg Hodnett Wheaties box we've got, his degree, an engineering degree that we've got on display, just all the things that, and tell some of the story of Greg being the technical person that he was, his contributions to the sport of sprint car racing behind the scenes, the work he did on the dyno with shock absorbers and with different race car parts, the torque tubes, and things that he helped to develop technically to make sprint car racing not only faster but safer.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, you talked about that last one here, and I was fortunate enough to interview him, and the first thing he said to me when we got out of the car was, it's kind of cool to see us old guys up here again, isn't it? And to listen to Greg and say he's old when he got out of that race car, I'm like, wow, again, back to me I've watched him since he showed up in sprint car racing. So Is this the first time you guys have done the whole lift the car up in the air thing?
No, we had our Salute to Champions, Sammy Swindell,
Okay.
and Roger Johnson
Yep.
was nice enough to provide us with these lifts he built for us. And when the exhibit was over, he said, why don't you just keep those for the display and maybe we'll use them again someday. So we thought the Greg Hodnett display, it's going to be our last Salute to Champions for a driver that we do. We're shifting gears a little bit moving forward next year. So we thought it'd be nice to bring the lifts back in, the stands for the cars, so people could see under the cars a little bit, see the chassis a little bit better, and just get a better close-up look of the car instead of it sitting on the ground like how it races. And if you look really closely at the cars, the ones that are up in the air, you can tell, where they have the chassis that have the split rails where one side sits lower than the other.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's crooked on the stands, but it's not. It's just the design of the chassis of the race car. So it's pretty interesting how much you can learn just by getting your eyes a little bit closer to the car.
You brought up next year. Do we get any information on what's going to happen next year at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum?
We're going to feature some different things in the museum. We're still going to have, of course, lots of race cars and historical race cars and drivers, featured drivers. But for our special exhibits, we're shifting from drivers over to another area. It's kind of like a movie theater. We don't want to show the same movie every week. We want to try to change it up a little bit. So we're going to do something we think race fans across the country will like, and we can shift it around from different parts of the country as we go. So it'll be something fun and something different. We don't want to let it out of the bag right now, but it's definitely not going to be our Salute to Champion drivers that we've done the last 10 years. It's just something new to kind of evolve the museum a little bit farther down the road and to include more people into the stories and the history of sprint car racing.
Something I want to bring up before you leave today, and I'm adamant about this. When I decided to give you a text this morning and say, hey, you want to come on and be on the show, one of the things I wanted to offer out to you was the chance, because you guys have had your doors closed. The money has not been flowing in like it does on a weekly basis at Knoxville Raceway, but you still have ways for people to be involved at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum, one being memberships, one being raffle cars, actually times two. Almost forgot about the Corvette. Tell us about that as far as the raffles that you're still doing. Even though we're not traveling right now with the sprint car, we still have a sprint car to give away.
Yep, we have our raffle car, the sprint car that we give away every 2 years. We'll give it away this year on Friday, December the 18th. And it's a brand new 410 car. It's a Speedway Motors put together, built car, Speedway Engineering 410 engine, and an EMI chassis. It's got the best of the best pieces and parts, the most modern equipment of any sprint car out there. $70,000 race car we're going to give away. And people can get online and go to sprintcarraffle.net and purchase those tickets. They're $25 each or $20 each, or 6 for $100. Had to think about that for a minute. $20 each or 6 for $100. And all the money comes to our museum to help us keep the museum open year round, so race fans can come in and learn more about sprint car racing. But the raffle car program, this is the 13th car that we've given away. And every year since we started, we numbered the first car number 1, and then the next year we did car number 2. This car was going to be car number 13.
That's a no-no.
And I know, and Greg Nickel over at Speedway Motors goes, Bob, how do you feel about car number 13? I said, well, I'm not really comfortable about it. I said, do you have another idea? He goes, what do you think about the 4X? I said, that would be great, because, 2 inductees, 2 of our National Sprint Car Hall of Fame inductees, Doug Wolfgang and Jan Opperman, drove the 4X for Bill Smith and Speedway Motors. So the 4X was a natural, and of course they put that bright purple and yellow paint for Speedway Motors on there, and we've had a lot of positive comments on how pretty the race car is. It's one of the most attractive raffle cars we've ever given away, and that's really helping us a lot. But again, you can do that, and you don't have to come in the museum. You can go right online to sprintcarraffle.net and purchase those tickets and help support the museum. Also, our Corvette that we're doing, it's a sweepstakes. It's called winaz51corvette.com. And you can go right online to winaz51corvette.com and purchase tickets to help support the museum at this time when our doors are closed. Right. And the drawing for the Corvette we'll give away on Saturday night of the Knoxville Nationals, which will be Saturday, August the 15th. And so we're very fortunate. We're ahead of schedule a little bit with the Corvette. This is the second Corvette that we've done, and this will be the new Z51. And they're in the process of building it. They were building it, and the factories got shut down, so they're supposed to start up at General Motors again next week. We just heard this morning, so that'll be fun to finally get the new Corvette, put it in our window, and show everybody the torch red Corvette. It's the mid-engine Corvette, so it's the engine behind the driver in the car, and then it has the compartment in the front like a like a trunk only in the front. It's a space compartment. So we're pretty excited about the Corvette. As I said, the sales are going really good for the Corvette, and it'd be nice to get it completed and in the museum. It's a great fundraiser because, you know, we had to lock our doors on March 20th for everything that's going on now. We're still locked up. We were hoping to hear something on when we'll be able to open our doors, but right now it's the sprintcarraffle.net and the win a Z51 Corvette.com are the two main sources we have to help keep our museum going. You know, the light bills continue to go on, and you still have to pay for the expenses and everything that's going on in the museum. Even though our doors are locked, we still have expenses to keep the place up. And so it's nice to have those two events going on online, and also our sprintcarstuff.com, where people can purchase the prints, the new posters, T-shirts. We got our Salute to Champion Greg Hodnett T-shirts and posters in. The first day we put our Salute to Champion Greg Hodnett posters online and our T-shirts, we sold 50 T-shirts one night. We came in and had orders for 50 T-shirts the next morning. So those are a real popular shirt. The people in Pennsylvania have bought a ton of those T-shirts and posters for our Salute to Champion Greg Hodnett. And so that was very good. We've already placed our second order on T-shirts that just came in. So, you know, our online sales are fair right now, but it's the Corvette and the Sprint Car Raffle that are really helping us keep the lights on and keep things going inside the museum as we prepare for when our doors will open, hopefully, very soon.
The Sprint Car Raffle, in tradition, you guys have always traveled to different racetracks, different events, PRI, all the way down to Charlotte, vacations, sports shows, and all that. That's all come to a stop right now. Are you behind sales or equal sales right now with that?
On the Sprint Car Raffle, we're just a little bit behind where we've been in the past for that very reason.
Okay.
In the past, we've been able to go to trade shows and races across the country, and all that stopped about the middle of March. You know, we haven't been able to take the Sprint Car out anywhere. I mean, not to any of the trade shows, the races that we do in the area, you know, until the big races like the King's Royal get started.
Sure.
And so it is a little bit behind on the Sprint Car Raffle. But we're sure once the season gets opened up, we get to be able to take it back to racetracks. And the closer we get to the drawing, at the end of it, that's when the majority of the tickets are sold for the Sprint Car Raffle. So we're still pretty excited that we're going to hit our goal on that. We printed 10,000 tickets. I think we sold about 3,500 tickets so far. So we have plenty of tickets if somebody would like to help support the museum and have a chance to win a brand new 410 wing sprint car.
Give us that website one more time.
The sprint car is sprintcarraffle.net. Sprintcarraffle.net. And for the Corvette, it's win a Z51 Corvette.com.
Now, we're recording this show today, and we're waiting for the governor. We're actually on Tuesday right now. We're waiting for the governor to hopefully open things up tomorrow, or say when the date is going to be for opening. You can keep an eye on our website, knoxvilledigest.com, for that information. Also, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum website. We'll have that as soon as you guys are open. It's going to be a big press release. I can see this already, because this is, I mean, not to say you're bored, because I know you keep yourself busy all the time anyway, but part of your personality is to be dealing with fans new and old, and you haven't had that opportunity this year to do that.
Not just myself, everybody in the museum. I mean, from Bill Wright, you know, Lori DeMoss, Jody Rawlings, all of us, you know, enjoy talking with our visitors when they come in and showing them around the museum and the Brian Clausen Suite Tower, and just, you know, talking with them about where they're from, where their favorite racetrack is, you know, what they like about Knoxville, or if it's their first time here, what their impressions are. And so it's very different to be in there working and not have the people, you know, to communicate with, to talk with. So we're looking forward to our doors being open, not just for the commercial end of it and for the financial aspects, but also, you know, just to have some people in there enjoying everything, enjoying the work that's been put in to the exhibits. Bill has worked very hard on the Salute to Champion Greg Hodnett exhibit. The last two cars just came in last week, so we're very, very pleased. We've got all 8 of the cars now, and the exhibit's really taking shape with the cars going up in the air and the mannequins, you know, with all the drivers' uniforms and helmets and all the memorabilia in the case. We're getting really close to be ready for everybody to come in and enjoy everything that we spent the last 2 months building.
Very nice.
So it's going to be nice to have people back in the museum again and to have some activity. And we're really looking forward to getting our suite holders back in the suites to watch some races, along with the race fans at Knoxville Raceway on Saturday nights.
Last Friday night was one for the history books. It never has happened. Hopefully we don't have to happen again. Hopefully it gets the fans in the grandstands. I know it drove me crazy. I know it had to drive you crazy. Because again, we even though we don't drive and compete like these drivers do, we live for the fans, and we want these fans to be a part of our sport.
Well, you and I are probably two of the larger fans, and just like the people that travel here every weekend from across different places in the Midwest or fly in from California or Ohio to race here, we look forward to every Saturday night at Knoxville Raceway, not just because of the races, but because of all the people that we get to meet from across the country. Every time, they unlock the doors, the gates at Knoxville Raceway, the pit area fills with people from all across our country, and we get to meet those people and talk with them and find out what's going on at racetracks in different parts of the world. And it's just so much fun, not just to be able to be at the races, but to be with our friends.
Yeah, exactly right. Bob, I know you got some things to do. I want to thank you once again for coming in.
Thank you very much, Mike, for having us on. Thanks for doing this show and keeping people informed right now, especially when there's not any racing going on at Knoxville Raceway. Lots of pay-per-view shows on the internet, and I hope people are enjoying those, and hopefully get back to real racing here in Knoxville soon.
Hey, we're going to take a break and take a look at our Seafoam sponsors, and we'll remind everybody to thank Seafoam and Kevin up there as well. And when we come back, we're going to do exactly what Bob just talked about, a pay-per-view coming up that everybody needs to tune into. That's coming up next on KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com.
Race fans, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum is open 7 days a week, year-round, for you to come in and check out all of the wonderful race cars on display in the museum. And our online store at sprintcarstuff.com is open 24 hours a day for you to check out everything that we have in stock for sprint car fans. Whether it's for a birthday, anniversary, or Christmas, sprintcarstuff.com has it all. That's at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum in Knoxville.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.
Hey, and welcome back to KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. And again, special thanks to Seafoam. I got to talk about this product right here. High mileage. If I can find my camera here. There it is right there. Turn it around. I'm getting this Van and White thing down, I hope. The high mileage stuff is what I use on my Trailblazer. I think it's got 150,000 miles on it and plus. And I'll tell you what, it's doing a great job. And I want to thank Kevin of Seafoam for introducing us to these products. And check out all the Seafoam products as you will and support this show and support racing in general because those guys are all over the place in sprint car racing around the Midwest. Last weekend we talked about, actually a couple weeks ago, Park Jefferson and Terry McCarl firing up the first 410 show in the nation on pay-per-view. Last Friday night then, the World of Outlaws rented Knoxville Raceway and put on a heck of a show on DirtVision.com. And man, you talk about a race up front, but a race throughout the pack as well. Unfortunately, you got to see what the camera angles were. And Ian Madsen and David Gravel putting on a heck of a show. Of course, Gravel picking up the feature win on Friday night. This weekend, racing action continues this time up at the Jackson Motorplex, and Todd and the gang up there putting his own money on the line as well to promote sprint car racing. And you can catch that. That's on SpeedShiftTV.com. And you ought to go up on their website. I'll tell you this right now. Check out Jackson Motorplex website because the listed names up there, this originally was going to be just an IRA show, but guess what? It's not now. You've got World of Outlaw drivers going up there. We invite you and encourage you to check out their website. Of course, the racing action starts this Friday night up there. $5,000 win show for 410s, and then on Saturday night, $7,000 to win. And again, you can check out all the action on SpeedShiftTV.com. And I encourage everybody to go up there and support that race. We don't know where the future is going to be right now, and so keep an eye on these websites, both the pay-per-views as well as the racetrack websites. And support these local racetracks because you know what, folks? It's been kind of a crazy year. We're just not sure what's going on or where it's going to take place or how we're going to view it. But all I can say is thank God right now because if this happens 20 years ago, we don't get the opportunity to watch this stuff on pay-per-view. All right? Modern technology at its finest right now. And we want to thank everybody for supporting all the races during this crazy, crazy time. But again, check out Jackson this weekend, Friday and Saturday night. And support 410 sprint car racing at its finest. Check out that list of drivers too. I'm talking about not just a few of the Outlaws. Everybody's on this list. All right, Schatz is on this list. Pittman's on this list. Madsen, Gravel, everybody's on this list. All right, so check it out. Hodnett, they're still parked here in Knoxville. They're going to be heading up there. All right, so support that race this weekend on pay-per-view. Again, SpeedShiftTV.com. You can check that action out as well. As far as Knoxville Raceway is concerned, hey, we're still on holding pattern. They made the announcement last week. that we're going to wait 2 more weeks now, and it looks like the weekend of May 30th, I believe, is when we were hopefully scheduled to put fans in the stand and to have some racing here at Knoxville Raceway. In the meantime, you can keep an eye on KnoxvilleRaceway.com for any further information as far as that goes. Also, KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. I want to do a big shout out and congratulations to those inductees coming up. Of course, my old buddy Ruth Graves being inducted. And of course, we lost Ruth here a few years ago, but her family will be inducted in the Knoxville Hall of Fame Museum coming up next month. Details on that and how that process is going to happen still in limbo. Again, all depends on what the situation is. Also, Dave Hill, T-shirt, our main photographer. A lot of these pictures that you see, and most of these pictures that you see online for us with KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com come from Dave Hill. Also, Chris Crone, my old buddy from Up Top on the Roof. Chris and I did a lot of TV shows together several years ago now, and I've known Chris a long time. He's been around here since 1993. He catches all the action at Knoxville Raceway each and every weekend. So congratulations to Chris Crone. And, of course, my old buddy Pork Chop, Randy Martin, down there in Missouri. He is being inducted in the Knoxville Hall of Fame, and Randy certainly gave us a bunch of racing shows that were very, very memorable. Of course, a champion here and around as well, lots of wins. And, boy, just all these drivers, I say champions, but all these drivers are champions in my mind because they put it out on the line each and every time. And it's fun to catch up with these guys, and hopefully we have a great weekend that weekend and things get back to a little bit of normalcy. In the meantime, we want to thank each and every one of you for tuning into KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com and keep an eye on for the latest news that we can put out there for you, as well as the latest podcast. Until next time, I want to thank Bob Baker once again for coming in, and we'll see everybody next week on KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.